One day I was driving to the city, headed to work, where Julian, Dory, and I were going to have a guest that was fascinating, discussing none other than the deep state and all his research showing the evidence that exists. I decided to head over to YouTube and find a podcast with a similar genre feel so I could come into that podcast with that mindset, prepared to talk about some of the craziest things. Little did I realize, Mr. Carlson had just dropped a conversation titled Power Grids, Bankers versus the West, Secret Underground Bases, and Extinction Events. That immediately got my attention. And before you know it, I was listening to the podcast and caught myself having to re-listen to the section of what happened if a global catastrophe had destroyed the US. What if one day everything just stopped? The lights go out, cars stall, phones die, people run to the streets, planes vanish from radar? No one knows what would happen if you were told the nuclear warhead was fired off and heading to the USA within an hour. What would you do? Panic? Scream? Cry? Or would you have a plan? Is the US preparing for an extinction event by building underground bases? There's an estimated over 170 underground bases that are not just beneath land, but also underwater, with transportation systems connecting all the bases, so a thriving civilization could continue?
We systematically went through and tried to estimate our guess, this is totally a guess, of how many underground bases, both underground in the United States, but also underground under the ocean around the United States. And our estimate was 170.
Well, why does nobody know this? Are they hiding something? Are they hiding a dark truth? Are these bases built for American citizens? There's a mountain in Berryville, Virginia that most Americans have never heard of unless you're in the area. If you drive by, you might just see fences, warning signs, and a few small buildings, government related. Nothing serious. But beneath your feet, there is a city. And not just any city, a government fortress built to run the country in case of total collapse. This is Mount Weather, officially called the Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center. Mount Weather's story didn't begin with the Cold War, but with the weather balloons. Originally operated by the National Weather Bureau in the 20th century, the site was used to launch high-altitude balloons and conduct atmospheric research.
Speaking of weather forecasting, all of the forecasts that we use here in the Weather Center are actually started from weather balloons. Actually, they started at a place called Mount Weather.
By the 1930s, the Bureau of Mines took over, using the location for tunnel experiments. But the real transformation came in 1954 under the code name Operation High Point. The Army Corps of Engineers got to work carving into Blue Ridge Mountain, completing a hidden fortress. By 1959, one that cost over $1 billion in today's money. Behind a 34-ton steel blast door, the underground complex known as Area B could sustain hundreds for 30 days. It held its own power plant, water reservoirs, a hospital, a crematorium, even TV and radio studios wired into the emergency broadcast system. Specialized systems like CIS and RIMS were installed to simulate and manage national emergencies. Sleeping quarters were limited. Only the President, Cabinet, and Supreme Court had private rooms. Everyone else shared space. When disaster struck, officials were divided into Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie teams. One in DC, one at Mount Weather, and reinforced to withstand a direct nuclear blast, allegedly. But what's more impressive is what's inside. Air filtration systems designed to block out radiation, gas attacks, and biological weapons. Massive food stores and medical facilities. Residential areas, including dorms, offices, and cafeterias. And even a hospital wing, literally a city underground. There are even secure roads and tunnels hidden from public view, which allegedly get you to other underground cities and bases. And most intriguingly, there's a television studio prepped for the president to address the nation underground. In other words, if the surface world fell apart, Mount Weather would press the reset button, a continuity of government hub that could assume control within hours. Mount Weather wasn't just a cave with a radio, it was a fully equipped underground civilization. The facility includes a 90,000 gallon per day sewage treatment plant and two massive 250,000 gallon above ground water tanks. Together, these systems are designated to support 200 people for up to 30 days. This ensures that no single event can wipe out the entire chain of command. However, this was according to information over a decade ago in 2010. Who knows what they are capable of now? November 9th, 1965, a mysterious blackout left 30 million people in the Northeast in complete darkness. It was one of the biggest power outages in US history, and no one could explain it, at least not publicly. It started like any other cold November evening. People were commuting, radios were playing, TVs buzzed with sitcoms and the latest news. But at 5:16 p.m. November 9, 1965, The lights in New York City blinked once, then died. In seconds, over 30 million people across 8 states and part of Canada were thrown into complete darkness. The entire northeastern power grid had failed. Elevators froze mid-floor. Subways ground to a halt, trapping thousands underground. Airplanes lost navigation signals. Traffic lights shut off. And in cities like New York and Toronto, chaos began creeping in. The official explanation, the government later said, a small component at a power station in Ontario, Canada had failed. It was like watching a tower of dominoes fall. Only these dominoes controlled the electricity for 80,000 square miles. What if this wasn't just a mechanical failure? What if it was a test? Remember, this was at the height of the Cold War. Just 3 years earlier, the US and the Soviet Union were locked in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Fear of the enemy infiltration was at an all-time high. The US government had quietly been working on a system called Continuity of Government, COG. A plan or how the country would survive if the unthinkable happened. That meant testing responses to disaster. And according to some intelligence insiders, the 1965 blackout may have been used as a real-world simulation to see how citizens like ourselves, emergency responders, and even politicians would react if the lights went out for good. Mount Weather, deep in Virginia, was one of the few places in the country that stayed fully online. Its backup power and communication systems kicked in immediately. Government officials stationed there were told to go code black. This wasn't their first drill. They were ready. But the people above ground, us, we were confused, panicked, and completely in the dark. An early glimpse of collapse in New York. People slept on the subway platforms and in hotel lobbies. Hospitals scrambled to keep machines running. Babies were delivered by flashlight. Police had to direct traffic manually. Behind the scenes, intelligence officials were scribbling notes. They were watching, measuring, learning. What worked? What failed? What could they expect when the next disaster came? The fallout after the blackout, a US-Canada task force was created to study the event. They issued reports, fixed infrastructure flaws, and upgraded relays. But in classified meetings, ones the public never saw, government planners began investing more heavily in shadow systems like Mount Weather. The thinking was simple. Next time, it might not be a relay switch. So the solution wasn't just fixing the grid. It was building an entire backup government buried in a mountain, designed to survive even if the rest of the country didn't. Starting in 1954, the US government launched Operation Alert, a nationwide civil defense drill. Major cities across America were forced into simulated lockdowns. In 1974, when a commercial plane crashed into the mountain, killing all on board. A tragedy. But when investigators arrived, they were stunned by the tight security and strange layout. Restricted airspace? Armed guards? That's when journalists started asking questions. Then came William Poundstone, author of Bigger Secrets. In 1989, he blew the lid off Mount Weather's classified functions. What he uncovered was disturbing. This wasn't just a shelter, it was a shadow government
that predicts the future, one that has been used by astrophysicists to answer some really big questions about the universe.
Poundstone revealed that Mount Weather wasn't just a shelter. He described it as a place that could take over the country within seconds, without elections, without press conferences, without debate. And yes, it's still operational today. By the late 1970s, Mount Weather's role began expanding in strange ways. On September 11, 2001, the most infamous day in American history, 2 planes that were hijacked crashed into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon.
2 planes have crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
There have been a series of terrorist attacks in the United States.
Pictures just in showed the building already on fire with smoke billowing from the upper floors. We have no detail.
And the US government activated continuity of government protocols for the first time in modern history. Members of Congress were whisked away. Some went to secret bunkers near Pennsylvania and West Virginia. But multiple intelligence sources believe that Mount Weather was among the final destinations. This wasn't improvisation. It was Procedure 301, a classified response playbook drafted during the Cold War. In the event of a national emergency, a group of designated survivors would assume temporary control. Orders would be relayed from underground hubs like Mount Weather. Civilian law could be suspended. Martial law could be declared. And yes, the average American would have no idea any of this was happening. According to a 1989 report, the Washington Post, Mount Weather houses not just a bunker, but a fully operational command and control facility capable of launching counterattacks, monitoring military assets, and even broadcasting pre-recorded messages from national leaders. Some of these messages, according to declassified documents, are stored in advance, ready to be triggered if the president is unreachable or worse. And Mount Weather isn't alone. It's part of a sprawling, often invisible network of hardened government facilities built for one purpose: to outlive civilization. There's Raven Rock, also known as the Underground Pentagon, a colossal fortress buried beneath Pennsylvania's hills, built to coordinate military operations in the event of a nuclear war. Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado houses NORAD's command center, carved deep into solid granite to survive a direct hit. Site R, Camp David's underground extensions, and even classified facilities near Denver and in Utah are all part of the same Cold War era doctrine: decentralized survival. Mount Weather is still operational, but it's not the only game in town. After the panic of 9/11, the rise of cyber threats, and the COVID-19 pandemic, America's wealthiest people quietly began building their own bunkers.
The top 1% are building bunkers. Mark Zuckerberg is constructing one in Hawaii, and it's worth $270 million.
This isn't doomsday preparing. This is luxury survival, I guess. Companies like Vivos, Atlas, Survival Shelters, and Rising S Bunkers offer multi-million-dollar installations, complete with wine cellars, movie theaters, indoor pools, hydroponic farms, and bulletproof panic rooms. Some bunkers are built inside decommissioned missile silos, like the famous Survival Condo Project in Kansas. It's a 15-story vertical fortress buried underground with armored elevators and biometric locks. One unit, around $3 million. Owners include hedge fund managers, former intelligence officials, and Silicon Valley CEOs. Why are they preparing? What do they know that we don't know? Because maybe they know how fragile the system is. They know what a grid failure, a financial collapse, or a bioweapon can do. In an A&E documentary titled Bunkers, engineers admitted this isn't for a tornado. This is for when society falls, in those words. Some of these private bunkers can house over 100 people for 2 years. So imagine what Mount Weather's capable of now. They come with medical suites, armories, and even staff quarters for personal chefs, doctors, and security guards. Billionaires aren't just buying bunkers, they're buying time. The time to wait out the chaos while the world reorders itself, I guess. And they've taken a page right out of Mount Weather's playbook. Redundant power, hardened walls, deep underground access, encrypted communications, full autonomy. Meanwhile, average citizens are told to keep a flashlight and some bottled water. According to insiders interviewed in the 1983 ABC 2020 segment,
an ABC News special edition of Viewpoint. Here now reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Nuclear preparation, can we survive? Mount Weather has files on US citizens, emergency legal scripts, and pre-drafted executive orders ready to deploy in minutes. Some speculate Mount Weather houses genetic archives, military AI systems, surveillance nodes, underground transportation tunnels. Author William Poundstone described it as a government in waiting, ready to replace Congress, the courts, and the executive branch. If a major event ever occurs, most Americans will be told to stay calm, shelter in place, and wait for updates. Sound familiar? COVID-19? Billionaires like Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, and other tech elites are investing heavily in fortified bunkers across New Zealand.
Is there something you know that we don't?
No, I think that's just like a little shelter under, and it's like a basement.
Little shelter. What are you worried about?
They're underground mansions equipped with hydroponic farms, biometric security systems, and private airstrips. Some are repurposing old missile silos, transforming them into luxury sanctuaries designed to withstand the unthinkable. While other billionaires like Musk, they're doing the opposite. They're trying to escape this planet before it's too late. So the most brilliant and wealthy people on the planet are either looking up or down, while the rest of us are just living day by day. Meanwhile, Mount Weather remains fully operational, its role and continuity of government shrouded in secrecy. This enduring preparedness isn't without reason. Global stability teeters on the edge. Tensions between nuclear-armed India and Pakistan have escalated over Kashmir at an all-time high. The Russian-Ukraine war persists with no resolution in sight. Compounded by concerns over Putin's health, and the Middle East is a cauldron of unrest, with conflicts threatening to spiral into broader confrontations involving state and non-state actors. Amidst these geopolitical tensions, domestic policies reflect a similar sense of urgency. The Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, established under the Trump administration and led by Elon Musk, has aggressively pursued a mandate to streamline federal operations. This has resulted in significant downsizing across various agencies, including the dismantling of the Consumer Product Safety Commission and substantial cuts to programs like Head Start. While DOGE claims to have saved $160 billion, how much of our government funding went towards underground bases, cities, to only support the most important citizens of our country? Let's not forget the many times where trillions, yes, trillions of dollars have gone missing. Let's look all the way back to Donald Rumsfeld of the Bush administration on September 10th, the day before 9/11, confirming, in his quotes, "Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. We cannot share information from floor to floor in this building because it's stored on dozens of different technological systems that are inaccessible or incompatible." Very odd the timing, and more importantly, incredibly frustrating that 2.3 trillion gone missing in zero follow-up.
But governments can't die. Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And this was over 20 years ago. Could it be misplaced funds along with the USAID funds that have gone towards selfish government investments or reckless spending? These actions underscore a stark contrast. While the public is often reassured that there is no cause for alarm, significant resources are being allocated for potential disasters. All the doomsday preppers are always laughed at and they're told they are kooks and are paranoid people, but the evidence of the government's long-standing investments in facilities like Mount Weather, Raven Rock, even Area 51, coupled with the private sector's rush to build personal bunkers, suggests a very dangerous anticipation of a crisis. It definitely gives the vibes, don't look over here, we're just doing this for fun. Anyone who does this though is crazy, but we do it because we're using it for research purposes or because we can spend that money. I call BS. Mount Weather isn't just a bunker, it's a symbol, a message etched in concrete and steel. When things fall apart, we'll be fine. The question remains, will the rest of us, or better yet, maybe these people, have the wrong theology, and it becomes a spiritual and cultural issue? Do you really think you can escape the inevitable, a disaster, a nuclear bomb, an asteroid impact? Do you want to live underground in a concentrated place? What do you think? Have they tapped into breakthrough energy? Are Tesla's theories being implemented to maintain these cities? What do you think is making it so they can maintain this? If you think this story is wild, this is just the beginning. We drop deep dives into the biggest rabbit holes every week on history that also impact today. So smash that like button like it owes you money, tap the bell, hit subscribe, and don't miss the next story you were never supposed to be told. This is Alessi, and I'll see you in the next one.